Hey, everybody, welcome to the Awakener podcast. It's great to have you today. So, before we begin, once again, I'm going to tell you each and every one of you need to go on your computer, go to theawakener.ca. Theawakener.ca is your best resource for everything that is happening, and I can explain to you, what's happening, why is it happening, the events that are unfolding, and maybe some of the events that are to come. So, what is happening, basically, to summarize it once again? There is a battle happening between two imperialistic forces on this planet. This is the U.S. military-industrial complex that protects the Western world and Westernism and the expansion of the Western world organically over the past few hundred years. And obviously the other side, which is the Eastern world, which is the communist conspiracy, which seeks to destroy the Western world and have their share. Now, this battle has been going on for quite some time, but in the current world that you live in, I specifically talk about between 1945 and the current years that you live in. It's a great read. It's literally like a thesis on the Awakener.ca. Go there, you can understand everything that is happening. Now, amazing thing happened today. Hunter Biden put in a plea deal for pleading guilty, I should say. Now, some of his things, I don't know what his case is in the court of law, but it basically says that he has some kind of innocence. He's not claiming that he's guilty. He just is saying, well, you know what, I'm going to plead guilty because you got enough evidence on me and there's nothing I can do about it. Now, this is specifically happening for one reason and one reason only, is that the government had a whole map laid out to show everybody proof that this guy was working for foreign entities, specifically China, the Biden connection. And this is kind of the warm-up. So his gun travesty issue and obviously his tax issue is really going to spell out to the general public, or was going to spell out to the general public, that he was working for the Chinese government. He was a Chinese spy. Specifically, we talked about a bunch of companies, one of them being CEFC, the other one being Patrick Ho, a spy. And there's other spies. I can't even pronounce their names, to be honest with you, these weird Chinese names. So go on the website, theawakener.ca. It'll detail all of it for you. Now, all this goes back to Obama. Okay, why did Obama approve all this treason that people are going to learn about? And the reason why he approved all this treason was he was actually a Soviet plant. Now, this goes all the way back to the collapse of the Iron Curtain, and the Iron Curtain collapse was false. Okay, I'll explain to you why. The whole thing was an art of war. Okay, the Soviet Union could not beat America. This battle, the U.S. military-industrial complex, they had a GDP of Canada's back in 1989. Same with China, they had a GDP of Canada's, I think $500 billion. The U.S. had a GDP of almost $8 trillion at the time. They were winning everything. They were winning the space race. They were developing amazing weapons, and the Soviets knew we're basically done here. So who saved the Soviets? No other than the globalists. They told you, George Soros and his crews, that the Iron Curtain was gone. They orchestrated this collapse. The Soviet Union gave up some territories, and boom, we believed it. And they organized with us together against us for the last 40 years. And in our hour of our defeat, the most amazing thing happened. This is the plan. This is the plan that I've been detailing for quite some time, that a lot of people believe, oh, there's no way there's a plan. There's no way the truth is going to come out. The truth is already starting to come out. And you're already seeing the enemy's kind of way to attack it. So coronavirus came out for a reason, to stop all the truth from coming out. Listen, very simple. Look at Patrick Ho. Look at his court cases. The court cases is the government had a FISA warrant on him for years. They are already surveilling all these Chinese spies, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, all the way back to 2015, maybe even 2014 and earlier. This is all happening for a reason, guys. Now, I have the insider with me. I haven't forgot about the insider. Insider, how are you?
I'm doing great.
We've got so much to talk about on the show. We are going to start in Canada because Canada is really key, because so much has happened with Trudeau and the NDP, which we actually kind of talked about on the show last time. We'll talk about it some more. Insider, what is the latest?
So the latest is that, okay, so give some background to the audience who may not know. The NDP, which is our socialist party, and the Liberals, which are true socialists, but they just don't call themselves that, made a deal because the Liberals have a minority government. So the NDP have enough seats to give that if they vote along with the Liberals would have a majority to pass whatever legislation they need. Right. So they made a supply and confidence deal with the NDP. The Conservatives put the NDP in a corner and said, you should call an election. You should get rid of this agreement and call an election right away. The NDP said, okay, we are going to rip up the agreement, but we're going to vote with the Liberals on a case-by-case basis. You have to also consider that the leader of the NDP that was elected in March 2019, he has to wait 6 years before he's eligible for his member parliament pension.
So what year are we on right now? We're on year 5.
We're in year 5.
So it's 1 year to go.
March of 2025 will be his 6 years, and then all of a sudden he's eligible for his pension. So he's not going to rip up the agreement.
Right.
And ripping up the agreement is total bullshit. It's called window dressing. What he's doing is he's saying we've ripped up the agreement, but we're going to go with the Liberals on a case-by-case basis. And if we don't agree with them,
so you're basically telling me that this whole thing about them not backing Trudeau is a bunch of
bullshit.
Nonsense.
Bullshit.
So this is something that I kind of figured too. So people in Canada are like, oh my goodness, there's going to be an election now. I don't believe there's going to be an election.
No.
So the communists, they both share the same ideals. Trudeau and crew all work for George Soros. They all work for this global communist conspiracy that I've detailed on theawakener.ca. They're all working against Canada and the Western world. Everything they do is under the guise of good, but it's meant to collapse, obviously, the Western world, our power in the world, our strength, so we can be conquered. So why are Canadians all kind of pumped up? I see all this time, like the right wing, we're all kind of pumped up about like, oh, there's going to be an election and this is the greatest news. Why is that happening? Because
misinformation, disinformation.
I know that you and me were both not excited about this.
No, because misinformation, disinformation. People don't understand the way Parliament works. And you're right back to what you said about George Soros. You're right. Go Google it. You're going to see pictures of Christian Freeland, our finance minister and deputy prime minister, with George Soros, Trudeau with George Soros. Even at the DNC convention, you see pictures with Kamala, with Alex Soros, who's now taken over for George Soros. So back to your question, total misinformation, disinformation. They don't understand that just because an agreement has been ripped up, doesn't mean that the NDP can still follow along and needs to follow along. And you know, one of the reasons why they did that, there's a by-election happening in Quebec. And the number one thing that the NDP candidate has been criticized at the door, when knocking at the door, is why are you in bed with Trudeau? We hate Trudeau. So if you want our vote, you need to break up this deal. So what did he do? He broke up the deal as window dressing to show the people, see, I'm not beholden to Trudeau. Come and vote for the NDP instead of voting for the Liberals.
Now, another thing we talked about on the show was the Senate, obviously, in Canada. So the Senate is kind of these appointments by the Prime Minister. I think life appointments.
Still 75 years old.
Okay, so they're basically life appointments. So 75 years old.
On the left, and it's on the left.
So Trudeau has done so much damage to this country that we've speculated on this podcast that even if Poilievre wins the next election, that's if the Chinese don't cheat. Yeah. He's going to be kind of stifled by this Senate that rules Canada. So he's going to try to pass all this agenda. The Senate's going to be like, no, you can't pass it, and he's going to get in trouble. Do you think that kind of is going to be true, or what's the latest?
100% true, because all of a sudden there were these vacant seats in the Senate. Trudeau has now, one by one, started filling seats in first of all, Alberta decided to pick their own senators. Right. He totally rejected the senators that are coming out of Alberta, and he picked his own people, which one of them is a trans activist.
Right.
Like we're picking,
just like the new military general for the Canadian government. If you just take one look at this person, she's totally a left-wing ideologue.
Yeah.
So the head of our RCMP, the head of our military, everything. So, and if you wanted to understand this, Trudeau is Barack Obama's hand and the globalist hand.
Correct.
So if you go back to the election in 2015, the globalists spent a bunch of money with the Chinese government to interfere in elections in Toronto, Vancouver, to oust out Harper from office. Right. The reason why Harper was ousted from office because he was Barack Obama's hand. You know, the Soviet plant in America, Barack Obama, his hand is Justin Trudeau. So they needed to ship the U.S. uranium outside of the country. They couldn't do it directly, so they needed to ship it to Canada first. They needed to have Trudeau in office. So the reason why all these investigations are happening, or not happening, or the Chinese are interfering in elections is because basically you can figure this all out on theawakener.ca. It's so it's almost impossible to kind of believe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you've been okay, so I think an issue here is why are there so many popular talking heads, especially in the States,
that
know nothing and are giving disinformation to the public? You have been banged on.
So this is about the Soviet Union still being alive. So Gorbachev basically selling this lie that the Iron Curtain's gone. They had this fake coup d'etat with Yeltsin and all this stuff. The communists, they rule that communism is no more on a piece of paper. It's gone. Okay. Who comes along? Vladimir Putin, who used to work for the communists, the KGB, and he gets into office, and basically he's been in control of the thing almost the entire time with a select group of his friends. Now, the military agenda of Russia is actually exactly the same as the military agenda of the Soviet Union. There's been zero change.
Right.
Zero. Okay? They still work with China. They've benefited China's economy. China's economy has benefited Russia. It's the same thing. So this is all just a giant optical illusion of war, exactly like we've told people. So it's the people who are talking about this, really, a lot of them have no clue what's going on. This is a communist conspiracy. So the collapsing of Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, that might have been real. Okay, the Iron Curtain is gone. Okay? Sure. But that doesn't mean that oligarchs in Ukraine or ex-Soviet oligarchs or ex-people in Ukraine haven't been working this entire time to set up, okay, well, when Ukraine goes to NATO, this is going to be our big revolution. We're not going to have a big, huge war in Ukraine and plan this all out years ahead of time, orchestrate a collapse of a Russian leader from Ukraine that's fake, take a whole bunch of U.S. aid money, launder the whole money, send half of it back to left-wing organizations in the States to feed us communism, send some money back to Russia. We've all figured this out on the Awakener.ca. This is probably why we don't have 1 million followers, because the system does not want you to know what's actually happening. So this is why we've talked about the conspiracy and its movement needs to keep Trudeau in, they need to keep Biden in, they need to keep Zelensky in. Yes. And interestingly enough, the fork in the road that has happened is that the leftists in the States, which we're about to move on to now, have completely changed paths. There's a huge fork in the road that has happened between the leftists and the conspiracy in the States. So let's talk about the latest there in the States. Okay. So I guess the leftists with Kamala are now telling everyone the idea that Kamala's going to win.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what are the latest polls? What are they telling people?
Well, it's a mixed bag. I mean, on the positive side, Democrat strategist Nate Silver is saying that Trump has close to 60% chance of winning. But then they're showing battleground polls where Kamala's ahead, which is really odd in battleground states like Michigan, etc. The only one where Trump is ahead is Arizona. And they were showing Pennsylvania's neck and neck. The rest of the battlegrounds like Wisconsin, Kamala's ahead. It doesn't make sense to what's happening on the ground, but let's look at some issues. They want to push forward an executive order to give amnesty to all illegal migrants. So if there's 20 million of them, and then they could all of a sudden get citizenship, they're going to vote before November. They're already in states like Michigan giving where's the Waltz from?
Yeah,
Minnesota, not Michigan. Yeah, thank you. Minnesota, they're already giving them driver's licenses to the illegals. So you take a driver's license, they're not going to ask you are you a citizen or not. They go and vote in advance voting or on election day, and there you go.
It really is a gigantic war if people think about it.
It is.
It's a gigantic war for power. And the U.S., a lot of people are completely asleep. What I've said about a lot of people is be careful who you watch, because Joe Rogan, all these people, let's not kid ourselves, they all went to the same parties.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Russell Brand as an example.
Exactly. So be very careful who you watch. Now, this fork in the road I was talking about is the leftists are now saying that, Kamala is going to win. Kamala's going to win. She's so popular right now. Now, the reason they ditched Joe Biden is because Joe Biden, they knew they couldn't win with Joe Biden. They knew that the distance between Joe Biden and Trump was so big that cheating had to be so completely monumental. Now, you have to understand the conspiracy does not want to reveal itself. That's kind of the last phase scenario. They will only reveal themselves if they absolutely have to, if they're going to lose. Okay? So think about things objectively. So Biden has to act crazy, and he's acting more crazy now because he's getting closer and closer to have to answer to the American people about the treason that he was involved in with Barack Obama and his son. Plain and simple. So the more stupid he acts, the more distance the polls go, because people start to recognize, Joe Biden's not too healthy. The more less popular he is, the Democrats are so foaming at the mouth just to beat Trump in their hatred that they literally have kicked Joe Biden out of office, and they have no idea what they've opened here. Now Joe Biden is not going to be the candidate anymore, and he's going to be fair game as soon as he steps out of office. And look at the case of Hunter Biden right now. So the case of Hunter Biden is Hunter Biden has admitted that he's guilty of these crimes.
Right.
And this is because simply the reason he did this, and the lawyer said that, because the public was going to learn all about the roadmap that the government had set out to show the treason, to show that he was involved in foreign affairs with different countries, and using his father. His father was the tool. And his father's access to Barack Obama was the main tool.
Abby Lowell said it, his lawyer said it very clearly. He pled guilty to the tax evasion cases to protect his family.
Of course. Because if they went to trial, all the news outlets would be covering all the government's thing. And you have to think about things optically. The government has all the answers. That's right. As much as you think things aren't happening, the government has all the roadmap and all the answers laid out to prove that Hunter Biden, without a doubt, was taking money from the Chinese government. He was working with his father, and he's probably a spy. So the tax case and the gun case are just kind of the warm-up to get people to understand that Hunter Biden is a spy. You understand? Now, we have detailed this on theawakener.ca. Hunter Biden leads to Joe Biden. Joe Biden leads to Barack Obama. Barack Obama leads to being the plant to the Soviet Union. And obviously, Barack Obama's election is going to lead to the globalists telling you to vote for him. We've detailed all this out on theawakener.ca. Anything else you want to discuss in the free show?
Well, I'm just concerned about the sentencing for Hunter. It's going to be in December, even though that's after the election, no matter who wins that election.
Now, the sentencing is only going to be for tax fraud and for the gun case.
Correct.
That's going to be nothing else that comes after this.
Correct.
So this case is not over, and the implications on all these other things is not over. This is only kind of the warm-up. So it's going to be really interesting. Now, Trump's sentencing has also been delayed. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see that.
What's the late?
It's after the election.
It's after the election. But it's going to be before January 21st.
Correct. But that's fine, because even if the sentencing is after the election and Trump wins, Trump can then, on federal charges, can pardon himself. But that's the same problem that happens with Joe. Joe is still the president until January 21st. He could pardon for commuting his son's sentence.
All right. Your thoughts below on what's going to happen for the election. Thank you for tuning into this website or this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, go to theawakener.ca. All the information is there. Take care.